The divorce was signed at 10:42 a.m. on that gray Tuesday morning. No tears, no drama, no goodbyes. Just two signatures on a cold, impersonal sheet of paper, sealing the end of something that had never truly been warm. Davi Correa believed with all the arrogant certainty of a wounded man that he was finally free. If you're enjoying this story, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you unforgettable love stories, free from a woman who, in his eyes, demanded too much. Free from the silent questions, the hopeful glances, the dinners filled with quiet. Free to return to the man he was before Helena Silva entered his life. But the truth, freedom tastes bitter when you taste it too late. Across the city, Helena closed the door to their former home with steady hands, but a ruined heart. Inside her suitcase, some clothes, documents, and one ultrasound hidden between books. Number 1 knew, not even Leonardo, her childhood friend, waiting in the car with that sad smile. The one that comes before you console a love that was never yours to keep. But Helena knew, she was pregnant with Davi's child, and no one, absolutely no one, would know anytime soon. For 3 years of marriage, Helena loved alone. She loved while Davi hid behind contracts, business dinners, and emotional walls. She loved even when he didn't touch her, even when he avoided her eyes. Even when everything inside her screamed for a single sign of affection, or at least respect. Then Bruna came. Bruna, with her eyes painted in promises, perfume too sweet, and ambition wrapped in charm. Bruna, who showed up on the night Davy was drugged with a wine laced with fake smiles. Bruna, who claimed the next morning that she was pregnant, even though Helena knew Davy hadn't touched her in months. Humiliated, exposed, and silent, Helena did the only thing left that could protect her from total destruction. She left. She took her pain, her dignity, and a secret even she could barely face. The child she carried belonged to the man who had made her feel invisible. Davi returned to his world of numbers and silence, certain he had escaped a failed marriage. He had no idea, not even the faintest suspicion, that the deepest bond of his life had just been formed. A bond made of flesh, blood, and fate. While Helena hid her growing belly beneath loose dresses and polite smiles, Davi tried to fill the void with the illusion of freedom. He went out more, smiled more, seemed alive. But as soon as night fell, the silence became unbearable. His massive apartment echoed too loudly. Her absence weighed like a ghost in the corners of the house. He didn't miss her touch, not her scent. He missed what he had never valued, the woman who waited for him, even when he gave her nothing. The quiet cup of coffee placed without request. The gaze that still believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. But it was too late. Or so he thought. Time would move forward. Faces would change. Parties would grow emptier. And one day when he least expected it, he'd hear a child's laugh. A laugh that sounded a little too much like his own. A laugh that would change everything. Because the divorce set him free. But a secret baby would bind him forever. Asterisk, she left with a secret he'd never see coming. Helena's footsteps echoed down the marble steps of the Correa estate, each one heavier than the last. Behind her, the mansion stood in silence. Grand, cold, and utterly empty. She didn't look back. Because if she did, the mask might crack. Not even the autumn wind knew how to touch her gently that day. It whipped against her coat as if trying to push her forward faster, away from a life that had become nothing but a collection of unspoken words and unanswered prayers. Leonardo waited by the curb, leaning against his black sedan with that familiar blend of concern and restraint etched across his face. He didn't ask questions, he never did. He simply opened the door, let her in, and drove as he always had. In silence, present, but never pushing. Where to? He asked quietly. Eyes on the road. Anywhere but here, she murmured, placing a protective hand over her belly for the first time. It still didn't feel real. The test had turned positive just 2 nights before the final court. Hearing a cheap pharmacy test, trembling in her hand inside a gas station bathroom, she'd stared at it for 20 full minutes. The line didn't fade. Neither did the ache in her chest. She wanted to scream, not out of fear, not even out of pain, but from the cruelty of timing. How could life grow inside her while everything else fell apart? But Helena wasn't a girl who asked for miracles anymore. She had once believed in fairy tales, that a man could love a woman for who she truly was, even if she came from a fabricated past and a hidden name. She had once believed that Davi could be that man. Now, she only believed in survival. When they arrived at her new apartment, modest tucked behind tall trees on a quiet street, Leonardo helped carry her bags upstairs. He didn't comment on her silence, or the lack of furniture, or the way she kept staring at nothing, but she could feel his presence, warm and unshakable, like an anchor on a stormy sea. He started. She turned toward him, forcing a small smile. Thank you, Leo, for everything, truly. His eyes softened. You don't have to go through this alone. She wanted to say, I already am. But instead, she said, I'll be okay. I have to be. That night, as Helena sat on the floor of her new bedroom with just a pillow, a blanket, and her thoughts, she wrote in a notebook she hadn't touched in years. If I ever tell him, it won't be out of fear or guilt. It will be when I know he deserves to know. She closed the notebook and placed it in the drawer, where it would stay hidden for months. Because right now Davi didn't deserve anything. Across the city, Davi scrolled through emails he wasn't reading, and drank wine that didn't taste like anything. The silence in his apartment was no longer peaceful. It was suffocating. The space Helena once filled with quiet warmth now felt like a vacuum, sucking every sound, every breath, every trace of meaning. He told himself it was better this way. Less complicated, no more awkward dinners, no more questions, no more hope. But when he closed his eyes, he saw her. Not the perfect image he had crafted of her. Not the wife he thought he needed. But the woman who had stayed by his side while he gave her nothing. He didn't miss being married. He missed her, and he didn't even know. He was already a father. 9 weeks in, and already everything had changed. Helena marked the days on her calendar in silence. No baby names, no ultrasound photos on the fridge, no dreamy talks with girlfriends. Just a pencil, a page, and a quiet tick every morning. Week 5, week 6, week 7. By week 9, her body had begun to shift subtly, but enough to remind her every second that she wasn't alone anymore. Her clothes grew tighter, her energy dipped, her cravings surprised her. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was the haunting, unshakable thought. What if he never knows? Leonardo was still around. He brought her groceries, helped assemble secondhand furniture, watered her plants when she forgot. He didn't ask questions about Davi, and when he looked at her, really looked at her, it was never with pity, only patience, only quiet, careful love. Sometimes, she'd catch him watching her as she held her stomach absent-mindedly. There was something unspoken there, something soft, but weighty, as if he already knew the child wasn't his. And as if he'd already decided, it didn't matter. "You're glowing," he said one morning, placing a bag of oranges on her counter. "I'm exhausted," she replied, smiling faintly. "You can be both," he said, and in that moment, she almost let herself believe in peace. Almost, but peace has a short shelf life when the past hasn't finished with you. Far across the city, Bruna sat in the Correa family penthouse suite, legs crossed, smile painted, sipping champagne she hadn't paid for. She had told Davi she was pregnant. He hadn't questioned her. Why would he? The man had no reason to doubt they had spent the night together, or so he believed. What he didn't know was that Bruna had drugged him. What he didn't remember was that he hadn't touched her. What she didn't expect was to not be pregnant at all. At first she thought it would happen naturally, that if she kept trying, she could make it true. But by the 6th week of her lie, panic had set in. Doctors confirmed it. No baby, no heartbeat, just a web of deception growing thicker by the day. Still, she wore the lie like perfume confidently, daily, and too much of it. The Correa family, though cautious, began to accept the situation. Davi had withdrawn after the divorce, and now, with Bruna claiming to carry his child, they hoped for some stability. He didn't love her, that was clear, but he was present, and Bruna knew how to work with that. "Once the baby is born," she whispered to herself in the mirror, practicing her smile, "everything will be mine." Meanwhile, Helena stared at the ultrasound photo taped inside her closet. It was blurry and small, nothing but a white bean floating in shadows, but it was hers. There's technically She hadn't told her family. Not that there was much to tell. Her true identity, Helena Montero, heiress to the Montero global shipping empire, remained her best-kept secret. To everyone around her now, she was just Helena Silva, simple, quiet, untethered. But she knew the time would come when secrets couldn't stay hidden. Not her name, not the father, not the truth. One night, curled on her small couch with Leonardo, asleep in the chair beside her, Helena whispered to her unborn child, "I don't know what the world will be when you arrive. I don't know if your father will be there, but I swear, you will be loved." She didn't know that, at that exact moment, Bruna was crafting a much darker promise. A plan to secure her place. A strategy to erase anyone who stood in her way. And at the center of it all, a child that didn't even exist. Asterisk, when lies begin to crack, truth slips through the seams. The first time Bruna saw Helena again, it wasn't planned, it wasn't staged, it wasn't anything but fate. The kind of fate that doesn't knock. It crashes. It happened at a private fundraiser hosted by the Correa Foundation. The kind of event Bruna now attended effortlessly. With a fake smile and a hand always resting just below her belly, where no baby grew. Helena shouldn't have been there. But Leonardo had insisted. His tech startup had just partnered with a major logistics firm, a quiet acquisition move that ironically looped Helena back into the very circle she had tried to escape. She wore a dark green dress, simple and elegant, the kind that whispered wealth without shouting it. She wasn't showing yet, not really, but something in her presence, the way her hand brushed her abdomen protectively, drew Bruna's attention like a radar. Their eyes met across the marble hall, frozen silence. Helena looked away first, but Bruna had already seen enough. Later, that night, behind the glitter and hors d'oeuvres, Bruna cornered her in the bathroom, where the air smelled too strongly of roses and tension. Well, look who's glowing," Bruna said, voice dripping with venom, hidden under sugar. Helena didn't flinch. "Excuse me? You know, you shouldn't show your face here. People might start asking questions." Like what exactly you were doing, for 3 years, while married to a man you couldn't keep. Helena's lips pressed into a line, but her eyes didn't waver. And you shouldn't speak so loud. Someone might hear the truth behind your pretty little story. Bruna's smile faltered for just a second. Careful, darling. I've earned my place. No, Helena said calmly. You stole it, and you're about to find out how quickly stolen things fall apart. Then she walked away, spine straight, stomach fluttering, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Outside, Leonardo was waiting. With the car, he noticed her hands were shaking. She was there, wasn't she? He asked. Helena nodded once. She knows, or suspects. Leonardo's jaw tightened. Do you want to leave the city? Lay low for a while. No, Helena said more to herself than to him. I'm done hiding. Let her come. Let the world come. I'm not the one lying anymore. Meanwhile, back at the Correa estate, Davi sat in his father's office, staring at the ultrasound Bruna had handed him that afternoon. Something felt off. He didn't know why. The date, the measurements, the way Bruna had rushed through her explanation. His mind kept drifting back to Helena, to the day she left, to the things she never said. She hadn't fought. She hadn't cried. She'd simply disappeared. And now, weeks later, he found himself asking a question he hadn't dared before. What if I was wrong? He thought he was done with her, but her absence still echoed louder than Bruna's presence. And somewhere inside him, something was shifting, a doubt, a fracture in the narrative he'd told himself to survive. Bruna watched him from the hallway, gripping her phone with white-knuckled fingers. She knew what he was feeling, and she wasn't about to let him spiral into questions that might unravel everything. So she did what she always did, when she felt control slipping. She made a move. That night, Bruna posted a photo on social media, her, in Davi's penthouse, smiling wide, with a caption that read, "Building a future with the greatest man I've ever known." It was fake. So was the setting. She hadn't even been invited. But she needed the world to believe. She needed Davi to believe. Because if the story cracked, Helena's truth would pour in like a flood, and Bruna would drown. Bruna would drown. The truth doesn't knock, it breaks in. Davi couldn't sleep. For the first time in weeks, his insomnia wasn't caused by silence, but by noise. Voices, questions, flashes of memory. The night Bruna claimed everything happened felt like a blackout, and the more he tried to piece it together, the more nothing made sense. He sat at his desk in the dark, the glow from his laptop casting tired shadows across his face. He had opened the file Bruna gave him, the digital copy of the ultrasound. He stared at it. Again and again. There it was. 7 weeks. But that wasn't right. He hadn't seen Bruna in over 2 months, not since the company gala, the night he barely remembered. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The next morning he made calls. Not to Bruna, not to his parents, to Marcos, his closest friend, his most loyal wingman, and the man who had been there that night. The only other person who knew how much Davi had drunk, or what could have happened when the lights in his memory went dark. I need to ask you something, Davi said as they stood at a quiet cafe downtown. Marcos leaned back, guarded. What's this about? That night. The gala. Do you remember Bruna being with me? A long pause. Too long. Marcos cleared his throat. She said she went back to your place with you. That you passed out and she stayed. Davi narrowed his eyes. But do you remember seeing us together? Another pause. This one tighter. I saw her talking to the bartender. Alone. After you left. There it was. Not proof, but a crack in the glass. And once a crack starts? Meanwhile, across the city, Helena stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, both hands gently cradling her growing belly. It was small, but unmistakable now. The outline of a future no longer invisible. She had an appointment in an hour. A routine prenatal checkup. Leonardo was going with her. Again, he never missed one. But this time, he looked different when he arrived. Distracted, tense, as if something was clawing at the edges of his calm exterior. Is everything okay? Helena asked as they sat in the waiting room. Leonardo hesitated. I saw Bruna's post. The one with Davi. Helena's stomach twisted, and not from the baby. She's pretending they're together. Pretending the baby is his. I know, she said, voice flat. She needs to. Because if he finds out he's not the father, she has nothing. Leonardo looked at her. And what happens if he finds out you are the one carrying his child? Helena's breath caught. That's not going to happen, she said. But what if it does? The silence between them stretched until the nurse called her name. Inside the dim exam room, the heartbeat filled the air. Fast, strong, steady. Helena closed her eyes. One sound, one truth, beating against a world of lies. Back in his apartment, Davi poured a glass of water and stood motionless, staring at the skyline. The doubt had become too loud to ignore. He didn't know what the truth was yet, but he was going to find it. And when he did, he knew one thing for sure. It would change everything. The lie was breaking, and she could hear the sound of it splintering. Bruna felt the pressure before the truth ever reached her. It was in the way Davi stopped answering her calls. In the way the Correa staff stopped addressing her with forced respect. In the way his mother, Donna Eliza, began asking questions Bruna couldn't answer without stuttering. Your next appointment is tomorrow, isn't it? Elisa asked casually over tea. Bruna smiled too wide. Yes, of course. The doctor's very private, high-profile client's name? Bruna blinked. Excuse me, the doctor's name, Eliza repeated, placing her cup down with deliberate grace. I'd love to send flowers, you know, as a thank you. Panic flashed across Bruna's chest like static. She mumbled a name, made it up on the spot. But she saw it then. The way Elisa's eyes narrowed, how she nodded slowly with that perfect Correa smile. It was over. They didn't believe her anymore, and worse. Davi had gone silent. Bruna stared at her reflection that night. Her makeup still perfect, her facade still intact, but everything beneath it was in shambles. She had gone too far, told too many lies, and now it was collapsing. She needed to act fast. Meanwhile, Davi sat across from the family physician, a man he trusted more than anyone else in the Correa circle. No records under her name, the doctor said. No appointments, no pregnancy files, nothing. Davi exhaled, long and sharp. It was strange how relief could taste like betrayal. He had doubted himself for so long, blamed Helena, accepted a version of reality fed to him spoon by spoon, but now he knew. Bruna had lied. Helena maybe hadn't. He left the clinic without a word, his mind racing, images flooding his thoughts. Helena laughing, Helena silent, Helena walking away with that final look on her face. He hadn't seen pain then. He had seen resolve. And now he understood. She hadn't left because she gave up. She left because he did. Across the city, Helena was sitting in a quiet cafe, stirring a cup of chamomile tea, eyes on a notebook she hadn't opened since the day she left Davi. She wrote a list, not names, not tasks, a list of things she was no longer afraid of: being alone, telling the truth, raising a child, letting go. She paused, then added, seeing him again. Leonardo entered the cafe with a soft smile and a small paper bag. Your favorite pastry, he said, placing it beside her. Helena looked up, grateful. You always remember, you're hard to forget, he said, and something in his voice made her heart thump. But before she could respond, a woman at the next table gasped, staring at her phone. Did you see this? Bruna Correa? Not pregnant. Total scandal. Her ex-husband's family caught her faking it. Helena froze. Leonardo followed her gaze. The screen showed a blurry image of Bruna outside the Correa building, surrounded by reporters. The caption, Bruna Correa's pregnancy confirmed as hoax. Source close to Davi, Correa speaks out. Helena's stomach tightened. She wasn't sure if it was anxiety, or the baby turning inside her. Are you okay? Leonardo asked gently. She nodded slowly. It's starting. What is the part of the story I have been dreading since the beginning? She stood, gathered her things, and took a deep breath. Somewhere out there, Davi knew the truth about Bruna, which meant he might come looking for more. And this time, he wouldn't be walking away with assumptions. Eyes met, words failed, and the silence said too much. The gallery was crowded, warm with the hum of conversation and the clinking of wine glasses. Helena hadn't wanted to come, but Leonardo insisted again. It's a charity event. Quiet, tasteful. I'll be there the whole time. He had promised, so she came, dressed in soft ivory, her long coat open just enough to suggest a curve, not enough to reveal everything. She walked through the room with a kind of silent poise that drew eyes without begging for them. She hadn't seen Davi in over 3 months. She told herself he wouldn't be there, but fate, it seems, has a cruel sense of drama. He arrived 20 minutes after she did, unaware, wearing dark gray, no tie, just enough scruff to look tired or older. His presence shifted the air in the gallery like a storm creeping behind glass. People noticed. Whispers moved. But Helena didn't turn. Not at first. He saw her before. She saw him across the room, still radiant, unreachable. The shock of seeing her again hit harder than he expected. She looked stronger, more grounded, and there was something in the way she moved her hand over her belly, casual, protective, that made his heartbeat stutter. It took him 3 slow steps to realize what he was seeing. No wine in hand, no tight waistline, no discomfort in her own skin. She was glowing, not from makeup or lighting, but from within. She was pregnant, and the timeline in his head clicked instantly. Too clean, too perfect, too close to the day she left. He didn't move toward her. He couldn't. Helena felt it before she saw it. The weight of his eyes on her, the pull in her chest that hadn't happened since she walked away. She turned and there he was. Her breath caught somewhere between her throat and ribs. Not because she wasn't expecting him, but because part of her never expected to feel anything again. Their eyes locked. 30 seconds. That's all it took. 30 seconds where the entire room melted away, and all that existed was 3 years of silence, a divorce that hadn't healed, and a child neither of them had spoken about. But both now knew. Davi's mouth parted, as if to speak, but nothing came. There was no right word, no right moment, no script for this. Helena held his gaze, then turned away. She walked past him, chin high, hands on her belly, not in fear, not in shame, but in power. Leonardo appeared at her side a second later. He said nothing, but his presence was grounding. Davi, watched as they left together. The storm in his chest churned louder. She hadn't said a word. And still he had heard everything, that she was carrying his child, that she had never told him, that she had moved on with or without his redemption. And for the first time in his life, Davi Correa was not the one in control. Asterisk, she opened the door, but not her heart. The knock came at 8:46 p.m., not loud, not rushed, just steady, like someone who wasn't sure if they should be there. Helena froze mid-step, her hand resting on the back of the living room chair. She wasn't expecting anyone. Leonardo had gone home hours ago. Her phone hadn't rung. Another knock. 3 soft taps. Her breath caught. She walked to the door slowly, almost afraid to confirm what her instincts already screamed. She opened it. Davi, he stood there, hands at his sides, jaw clenched, eyes full of everything he'd never said. No suit, no posture, just a man undone. For a moment, neither spoke. Helena's first instinct was to shut the door again. Not because she was angry, but because she wasn't ready, and she didn't know if she ever would be. He spoke first. Is it mine? No, hello, no apology, just the truth. Like a stone thrown through stained glass. She blinked, then stepped aside. Come in. Davi entered the small apartment like a man stepping into a different world, one without marble floors, without chandeliers, without cold hallways echoing his silence. This place had warmth, and presence, and life. He sat on the edge of her couch not because she asked, but because his legs no longer trusted him. Helena didn't sit, she stayed standing, one hand resting on the curve of her belly, as if guarding it. How long have you known? He asked. Since before the divorce, he exhaled sharply. And you didn't tell me, you didn't ask. He looked up, wounded. Helena, you didn't ask anything, Davi, not when I left. Not when I packed my things. Not when I stood in front of you waiting for some kind of reaction. His voice cracked. I thought you cheated on me. I know, she said, calm but cold. Because that was easier for you to believe than facing the fact that you broke me long before Bruna did. That name Bruna landed like poison. Davi winced. I never touched her, he said. That night, I was drugged. Marcos confirmed it. She faked the pregnancy. I know, he blinked. You, no. I've always known. A woman can tell. Davi buried his face in his hands for a second, then looked up. Why didn't you tell me about the baby? Helena's eyes burned. Because I didn't want to raise my child, hoping for the love of a man who couldn't even give it to his wife? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of consequences. He stood slowly, walked toward her, but stopped when she stepped back. I'm not here to ask for anything, he said. I just needed to see you, to know the truth, and now you do. I want to be part of this child's life. Helena didn't answer right away. Her breath trembled, just once. Before she said, I'll never keep you from your child. Davi, but you don't get to walk back in and erase everything that came before. I don't want to erase it, he said softly. I want to face it, even if it's too late for us. For a moment, she saw the man she wished he had been. The softness in his voice, the weight in his eyes, the regret he wore like a second skin, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She walked to the door, opened it again. Thank you for coming. You have your answer. He paused at the threshold. I'm not giving up, he said. She met his gaze. I know. That's what scares me. And then she closed the door, gently, not with anger, but with the quiet strength of someone who has finally learned when to protect her peace. Peace. He came back for the child, but stayed for more than he admitted. Davi didn't call the next day. Or the one after that. He knew Helena needed space. And for once in his life, he respected that without turning it into another excuse to retreat. Instead, he made quiet moves. He called her obstetrician's office. He asked if it would be appropriate for him to attend the next appointment. He sent a message, short, careful, not here to push. Just want to be part of our child's life. I'll sit in the waiting room, if that's all you allow. Helena didn't reply, but 2 days later, when she showed up for her 21-week scan, he was already there. Sitting in the far corner of the lobby, hands folded, eyes lowered. No arrogance. No entitlement, just presence. She walked past him in silence, checked in, sat across from him, far enough to keep the air safe, close enough to say, you can stay. Inside the ultrasound room, the doctor guided the probe gently across her belly. The screen flickered, then sharpened, and there it was, a face beginning to form, heartbeat like thunder underwater. Davi stood beside the chair, not daring to touch her hand, though his fingers ached too. But his eyes, they were full. For the first time in his life, he saw something he hadn't known he could. Love without knowing. His child. He didn't speak until they were back in the hallway. Thank you, he said quietly. Helena just nodded. The words didn't come easily for her anymore. Not with him. Trust wasn't a switch. It was a door with 5 locks, and Davi had barely touched the handle. Later that evening, Leonardo stopped by her apartment. She didn't tell him Davi had come, but he noticed her distance, the way she kept fiddling with the teacup, avoiding his eyes. Was he there today? He asked finally. She paused, then nodded once. Leonardo sat down slowly. And how do you feel? I don't know. Are you letting him in? Helena looked at him, really looked at him. The man who had stayed The man who never needed to be asked. I'm letting him near the baby, she said. That's all. Leonardo forced a smile. That's fair. But his eyes betrayed something else. Outside, the wind howled, a shift in season, and somewhere far from the warmth of that apartment, Bruna was watching, not through cameras, not in person but through screens, through whispers, through someone else's eyes. She had disappeared after the scandal, no public statement, no appearances. Gone from headlines, erased from society pages. But she wasn't finished. Her pride had been shattered, her image destroyed. But Bruna Correa didn't disappear. She recalculates. In a dim apartment paid for by a friend. She scrolled through recent photos on gossip blogs. There it was, Helena at the gallery, Helena at the doctor's office, Helena with Davi, and suddenly, Bruna smiled. It wasn't the same smile as before, not flirtatious, not seductive. It was cold and sharp. Let her think she's won, she whispered, tapping her screen. Then she made a call. A private investigator answered. One she had used before, one who didn't care what was legal, only what was paid. I want everything on her, she said. Real name, family, assets, weaknesses. A pause. And find me someone who knows how to make people disappear. From the inside, to destroy someone completely, you have to know who they really are. It started with a name, not the one. Bruna knew Helena Silva. That was too clean, too conveniently simple for a woman who lived like no one else mattered. The investigator had called her back within 48 hours. His voice was dry, professional, unmoved. She's not who she says she is, he said. And frankly, I'm surprised no one figured it out sooner. Bruna sat forward. Talk. Her real name is Helena Montero. E Monteiro Global, as in one of the largest logistics empires on the planet. Silence. Then Bruna laughed. Not the amused kind, the kind you release when disbelief slams into pure, seething envy. Of course, she whispered. Of course she's rich. Of course, she's an heiress, because nothing about her ever made sense. She stood up, pacing. All this time, she played the poor little orphan, the good wife, the broken girl. Her voice rose, but she was just waiting to see who deserved her. Crown, the investigator continued, unfazed. She's kept it well hidden. Went to public schools under her foster identity. Separated herself legally from the Montero surname until age 23. All paper trails clean. Quiet, deliberate. Bruna stopped pacing. She had spent months selling herself as a Correa by manipulation. And here was Helena, born into a kingdom, and running from it. What else? Bruna snapped. She's in business now. Quiet partner in a private aviation logistics company. You'll love this. Her partner, Leonardo Freitas, her childhood friend, former military background clean. Bruna's mind raced that Helena had money, connections, power she hadn't even touched yet, and Davi had fallen in love with her without even knowing. But now he knew. Now he had the truth. Now he had the heir, the child, the perfect woman he never appreciated, and could still have. Unless, Bruna's hands trembled with rage. Then, with calculation, she called her lawyer. I want every business and asset under Helena Montero's name investigated for fraud. Anything shady, I don't care how minor. And I want someone inside that aviation company, a temp, intern, janitor. I don't care. I want ears and eyes. Under what justification? Her lawyer asked. Bruna smiled. Anonymous whistleblower. Tip about money laundering. Let the media do the rest. While the lawyers moved in the shadows, Bruna began her next phase. Psychological warfare. First, anonymous emails to reporters, with just enough detail to make them dig. Second, a message unsigned, slid under Helena's apartment door. Were other people's names, like armor? What happens when the world sees who you really are? Helena found the note at 6 a.m. She didn't panic, didn't cry, but her fingers tightened around it like it was a live wire. Leonardo saw it in her eyes later that day. Something had shifted. You're distant again? He said. I'm being watched. She replied quietly, and I think someone knows. He stiffened. Knows what? My name. Leonardo leaned forward. Do you want to go to the police? Helena shook her head. Not yet. I need to be sure. Across the city, Davi sat in his office, flipping through papers. Without reading them, he hadn't stopped thinking about the ultrasound, the heartbeat, the way Helena looked at him, like someone who'd survived him, not someone waiting for him. Then, his phone buzzed. A news alert. Small gossip blog, not mainstream. Heiress? In hiding, rumors swirl around Helena Silva in secret Montero ties. He clicked the link. SCROLLED. Photo of Helena. Photo of the Montero boardroom. Anonymous source. His heart dropped. Not because she'd lied, but because someone was trying to hurt her, and that meant she was no longer safe. He stood up. Get my car, he told his assistant. Now, because Davi Correa had finally seen what he should have from the beginning. Helena was never weak, but the people who feared her strength, they were and now, they were coming for her. It wasn't just love anymore, it was protection. It was war. The article spread faster than wildfire. At first, it was a whisper on niche blogs, then a trending hashtag. Then it hit national sites, with headlines just vague enough to avoid lawsuits, and just bold enough to destroy reputations. The hidden heiress. How Helena Silva lied to everyone, including her billionaire husband. The story wasn't entirely false, but it wasn't true either. It painted Helena as manipulative, as a gold digger pretending to be poor, who tricked the Correa heir into marriage while hiding her Montero inheritance. The irony. She had married Davi precisely to avoid all that. But the internet didn't care for irony. Only spectacle. Helena stood in front of her mirror, watching the news ticker crawl beneath a panel of talking heads debating her motives. Her character, her pregnancy. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Paparazzi had found the apartment building. Neighbors whispered in the elevator. The building manager asked politely if she could consider moving out to preserve the peace. Leonardo paced her living room, voice sharp on the phone. No, she's not doing interviews. No, we're not giving a statement. And if you show up here again, I'll have you charged with harassment. He hung up. His hands shook. Helena looked at him. It's not your job to fix this. It is, he said, softer now. Because I care. Because I told you I'd protect you. Before she could answer, a stone shattered the living room window. They both ducked instinctively. Glass raining across the floor. Leonardo moved fast, closing the blinds, pulling her back from the edge. Outside, tires squealed. The car was gone. Inside, silence. Then Helena whispered, "This is my fault." "No," Leonardo said, gripping her shoulders. "This is hers." And across the city, Bruna watched the coverage from a quiet hotel suite. She wore a robe, her feet propped up, glass of wine in hand. The stone wasn't her idea, but she wasn't sorry. The chaos felt good. Like balance. Like Helena finally getting a taste of what Bruna had lived through. Public humiliation. Betrayal. Exile. Only difference was Bruna was built for this. Helena wasn't, or so she thought. But what Bruna didn't expect was Davi's reaction, because that same evening, he was standing at Helena's door. Again. Only this time, she opened it without hesitation. "What are you doing here?" she asked, tired, raw. "I saw the news. I saw the window." Helena crossed her arms. "And what? You're here to say you're sorry again?" "No," he said. "I'm here to say you don't have to face this alone." Leonardo stepped into the hallway behind her. Tension filled the air like static. "I've been handling it," Leonardo said calmly. "She's safe." Davi nodded, slow. "Then let me help." Not as her husband, not as her mistake, as the father of her child. Helena looked between them. Two men, one past, one present, both trying to protect what she had sworn to protect alone. She exhaled. "You want to help?" she said to Davi. "Yes." "Then don't argue with him." She gestured to Leonardo. "And don't treat me like I'm breakable." "I'm not." "No," Davi said. "That's why I'm here." He stepped back. "I'll send a team to secure the building, discreet. No names, no press. I won't come in, I won't push, but I won't disappear again." She didn't thank him, but she didn't close the door either. That night, a security team arrived quietly. No uniforms, no questions. Just presence. And for the first time in days, Helena slept. Not deeply, not peacefully, but without waking up to fear. Across the city, Bruna saw the shift too. Her phone buzzed. A single message from her private investigator. "Correa is involved again. Increased security. We're being watched." Bruna frowned. "Oh, Davi?" she whispered to herself. Still trying to be the hero in a story you ruined. She stood, walked to her desk, and opened a file. Inside, photographs, notes, a diagram. She circled one photo. Helena stepping into a car, then another. Leonardo exiting her building. Then a third. A blueprint of Leonardo's private hangar. Bruna smiled. "It's time to hit where it hurts most." Asterisk. The trap wasn't loud. It was elegant, precise, deadly. Bruna didn't believe in second chances. She believed in leverage. And now, she had enough to burn everything Helena loved to the ground. Not with noise, but with quiet devastation. She knew Helena would never be broken by gossip alone. She had survived betrayal, loneliness, abandonment. But Bruna had found something else. Leonardo. The silent protector. The man always 2 steps behind Helena, but somehow always in the way. So Bruna went for him. It started with a forged email sent from a Monte Carlo domain. A fake subsidiary cleverly disguised under the Montero Group. It offered Leon Company a new deal, a hangar usage partnership in Snow Jose dos Campos. The documents looked legitimate, the signatures were clean, and the location, isolated. When Leonardo received the offer, he didn't suspect anything. It wasn't uncommon for smaller contracts to show up unexpectedly, especially through intermediaries. But what he didn't know was that the hangar listed no longer existed. It had been deactivated 6 months earlier. Now it was little more than an empty warehouse with broken cameras and no working security system. Bruna's message to her contact was simple. When he gets there, scare him. No injuries, just enough to send a message. But her contact had other plans. The morning of the meeting, Leonardo left Helena's apartment early. She was asleep. Davi had checked in just an hour before, never entering, but always watching. Leonardo left her a note. "Quick contract check. Back before lunch. Don't leave the building. I mean it." Helena woke up, read it, and didn't think much of it. She trusted him. He always came back. Until noon passed, then 1 p.m., then 2. She called, no answer. Called again. Voicemail. By 3:15. Her hands were shaking. That's when Davi arrived. Not uninvited, just intuitive. You're pale, he said, instantly alert. What happened? Leo's gone. He left for a meeting. He said he'd be back by noon. Where was the meeting? She handed him the email. Davi scanned it. Then again? Where did he say he was going exactly? She pointed to the hangar ID. Davi's jaw locked. There's no contract there, he said, already pulling out his phone. That site's dead. Helena's heart stopped. Dead, she whispered. Then where is he? Davi didn't answer. He was already making calls. Get me satellite traffic on Sector 12B. Now I need eyes on a decommissioned hangar near Snow Jose. Civilian level. Scramble discreetly. No media. Helena clutched the phone in her hand. This is Bruna, she said. Davi nodded. It's more than Bruna. She's working with people. Meanwhile, Leonardo opened his eyes. His head throbbed. His vision blurred. He was inside a concrete shell, a hangar stripped to its bones. His wrists were zip-tied, his phone gone. But he was alive and not alone. A man stood in the shadows, masked, armed. You were told not to play hero, the man said. This is your warning. Leonardo tried to speak, but all he managed was, don't touch her. The man stepped closer. We're not here for her. Not yet. Then a blow landed, blunt, fast, and the world went black again. Back in the city. Helena stood frozen as Davi coordinated an extraction with military precision. You're doing this like you've done it before? She said quietly. He didn't look up. Because I have. He turned to her, voice lower now. When I was in law school, I did a short stint working intelligence with Korea Private Security. Protocol, mostly internal leaks, sometimes ... Things like this. She blinked. You never told me, you never asked. She nodded. And now, he said. I'm not letting anyone else disappear because I hesitated. At 6:08 p.m., the car arrived at the hangar. Davi stepped out first. No press, no sirens. Just quiet urgency. Inside. Leonardo was found barely conscious but alive. The man was gone, vanished like a shadow. Helena arrived minutes later when she saw Leonardo bruised. Bloodied yet breathing, she fell to her knees beside him. He opened his eyes just enough to see her. You came? He whispered. I always would. Behind her, Davi stood still. He had saved the man who had protected the woman he once broke, and he knew something now. Something unshakable. This wasn't about winning her back. Anymore, it was about keeping her alive. And she wasn't just fighting for herself now. She was fighting for her baby, for Leonardo, for the truth, and Bruna had just started a war she didn't know how to finish. She stopped running. She started leading. The hospital lights buzzed softly overhead as Helena sat beside Leonardo's bed. His face was bruised, his arm fractured. But he was awake, alive, stable. She held his hand, not in romance, but in gratitude. He opened his eyes slowly. You're safe, she whispered. You shouldn't have come, he rasped. You would have, she replied. He managed a small smile. Still not fair. Across the room, Davi stood silently. He hadn't left since they brought Leonardo in. He hadn't tried to insert himself. He just stayed like stone. In a storm, weathered and still standing, it was Helena who broke the silence first. This isn't going to stop unless I stop hiding, she said, voice calm, clear. Davi stepped closer. You're right, and you're not alone. Leonardo stirred Helena. You don't owe anyone your name. No, she said. But I owe my child a safe future, and that means I stop pretending to be small. She stood up. No more secrets. No more running. The next day, a press conference was announced. The Montero family, a dynasty known for silence, released a single, shocking statement. Helena Montero will address the public personally at 6 p.m. regarding the recent misinformation campaign targeting her character, safety, and unborn child. The media swarmed like sharks. Rumors flew. Bruna panicked. This wasn't in her plan. She had hoped Helena would stay afraid, stay hidden, stay weak. But now Helena was stepping onto a stage with the world watching. 6 p.m. sharp. The podium was clean. The room packed. Cameras rolling. Flashes everywhere. Helena walked out slowly, wearing a tailored cream suit that made no apology for who she was. No coat to hide the bump. No makeup to mask the truth. She looked like a woman who had lost everything, rebuilt it quietly, and come back stronger. She cleared her throat. My name is Helena Montero, she began, her voice steady. Some of you knew me as Helena Silva. That wasn't a lie. It was survival. She paused. Let them lean in. I never intended to deceive. I only wanted to be loved for who I was, not for my last name, not for the billions tied to it, not for the legacy that carries both privilege and burden. A murmur ran through the crowd. I married for love, she continued. I left that marriage to preserve my soul. I am now preparing to become a mother, not as a victim or as a pawn, but as a woman who will not raise a child in fear. Her hands never trembled. I am not a scandal. I am not a secret. And I will not be threatened by cowards who hide behind screens and shadows. The room erupted in quiet applause. Catalina stepped back. Done. She had reclaimed her narrative. Elsewhere, Bruna screamed. The hotel TV shattered under the weight of the glass. She hurled across the room. She thinks this is over. She hissed, pacing wild-eyed. She thinks one speech makes her untouchable. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered. Who is this? A voice, flat, male, unreadable, replied. The man you paid to send a warning. Just made a deal. Silence. What kind of deal? She demanded. With the Correas, with the Montairuzo, with the press. Bruna's stomach dropped. Too much heat, the voice said. You're on your own now. Click. Bruna stared at her reflection, eyes bloodshot, lips trembling. The house of cards was falling, and this time, she had nothing left to catch. Meanwhile, Helena returned home to find the apartment.com, but not empty. Davi was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed. She raised an eyebrow. Did I say you could stay? No, he said, softly, but I stayed anyway. You've had to stand alone for so long, I thought maybe you shouldn't have to end the day that way. She didn't answer, just stood there, silent, tired, alive. He stepped forward. Carefully. You were incredible, he said, and terrifying. She almost smiled. Good. He nodded then, hesitantly. Do I still get to be part of his life? Helena looked down at her belly, then back at him. You don't get to earn your child through me, she said. You earn it through him, every day, every decision. From now on, Davi nodded, solemn. Then I'll start tomorrow. No, she said. He blinked. She placed her hand on her belly. Start now. Some wars aren't won with love. They're won with fire. The storm didn't come with thunder. It came with Bruna, silent, calculated, desperate. She had vanished from the press, faded from society. Her face scrubbed from headlines. But Bruna had never truly disappeared. She had only been planning her final move. And now, she was ready. It happened early. Helena entered the underground parking lot of the Montero building just after sunrise, expecting a quiet moment before meetings. She didn't notice the black car in the far corner. She didn't feel the eyes watching her every step, not until the cold press of metal touched the back of her neck. Don't scream, Bruna whispered, voice hollow. You've said enough already. Helena didn't scream. She turned, and there she was. Bruna, unrecognizable, eyes sunken, makeup smeared, shaking hands, holding a syringe. Adrenaline, not a gun. Worse, enough to send you into early labor, Bruna said softly. Not lethal for the baby, probably, but you'll beg. Helena's voice was steady. Why? Bruna laughed. Dry, sharp, unraveling. Because you took everything. My name, my future, my spotlight. You were supposed to disappear, Helena, but you made me disappear instead. Helena didn't answer, because she didn't have to. She just kept Bruna talking. What Bruna didn't know was that Davi had already seen her. Ever since the press conference, Davi had arranged discreet surveillance around Helena's home and office. When she didn't answer his morning text and the cameras in Garage 3 went dark, he acted fast. He arrived in under 3 minutes. Seconds later, Bruna raised the syringe. Helena didn't flinch, but suddenly a voice boomed. Drop it, Bruna. Spun. Davi. He was there, gun holstered, hands up, voice calm but unyielding. Don't do this, he said. You never chose me, she spat. Even after everything, you always looked at her. She gave me nothing, she screamed at ease. Eyes never left hers. She gave me a son. Bruna froze, then smiled. Then you better hope he doesn't remember this. She lunged forward, syringe aimed at Helena's stomach. Davi moved. Fast, instinctive. He stepped between them. The syringe sank into his shoulder. He collapsed with a cry, not from pain, but from impact. Security swarmed the garage seconds. Later, Bruna was restrained, screaming, unhinged. Defeated, Helena dropped to her knees beside Davi. His face was pale, his breathing short. You're okay, she whispered. You're okay. Just stay with me. He smiled faintly. Guess I finally did something right. Hours later, hospital. The wound wasn't fatal, but it was enough to scare everyone. Davi lay in bed, eyes closed. Helena sat beside him, one hand on his arm, the other on her belly. You saved our lives, she said. He opened his eyes. I wasn't trying to be a hero. Then why? Because I couldn't lose you again. Bruna jailed alone, abandoned by her allies. Her lies exposed, her threats recorded, her image shattered. Her final plan had failed, and for the first time, the only person Bruna Correa could destroy was herself. She didn't find herself in anyone else. She found herself in surviving it all. 3 weeks later, the sky was gray when he was born. No rain, no sunlight. Just that soft, silent gray that feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting for something to begin. Helena held her baby for the first time with trembling hands and unshakable eyes. He was small, warm, pink-skinned, and impossibly real. Davi was there, not next to the bed, but standing quietly at the back of the room, watching, present. He didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't beg. He just stood there like a man finally understanding the magnitude of what he had nearly lost and still might. Helena looked up. Do you want to hold him? Davi's breath caught. He walked forward slowly, took the baby in his arms, and said nothing for several seconds. Then he whispered Gabriel. Helena nodded, Named after my brother. Devi's eyes welled up. He didn't say thank you, didn't apologize, he just looked down at his son, and finally, truly saw him. Days passed. Helena brought Gabriel home. Leonardo visited with flowers and a half smile. He's perfect, he said, cradling the baby gently. Strong hands, quiet eyes. Helena smiled. He gets your calm, and your fire. There was silence. Then Leonardo asked the question they'd both been avoiding. Do you still love him? He didn't say the name. He didn't have to. Helena didn't lie. I do, but not like before. Leonardo nodded. And what about me? She took his hand. Warm, safe, familiar. You saved me, Leo. But now I have to learn how to stand without anyone holding me up. He didn't argue. He kissed her forehead. When you're ready for someone to stand beside you, I'll still be here. Months later, Helena returned to work, but this time, she signed everything as Helena Montero. Not to prove a point, but to own the truth. She walked through the offices with her son in her arms, introducing him to the world he'd inherit, not from legacy, but from strength. And that night, she opened the notebook she hadn't touched in a year. She wrote, the final entry, asterisk, I thought I needed someone to love me for who I really was, but first, I needed to become her. I lost love. I found it. I let it go. And now, it sleeps in my arms, eyes closed, heartbeat steady. This is the love I choose. The love that doesn't break me. The love that came from surviving. Asterisk final scene. Helena sits on a park bench, Gabriel sleeping softly on her chest. Davi approaches from a distance, carrying coffee and a blanket. He doesn't speak. He doesn't press. He just sits beside her, not as her man, not as her redemption, just there. Helena looks at him, then at Gabriel. And she smiles, not because she got him back, but because she never lost herself again. Asterisk if you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable romances. Until the next heart-stopping moment.